The OKC Thunder strike back. I'm going to give you guys my instant reaction, my instant takeaway from the game. It is 1-1 now. Huge game for the Thunder, obviously. Starting off at the beginning of the game, both teams to me looked energized, aggressive. They looked ready to go. The way that they were just going offensively, attacking the rim, getting these open looks. It's not that the defense was bad the way that this game started. I think it was just more so that the offenses were, the players in general were just realizing the importance of this game. The Thunder knew they could not go down 2-0 against this team. And so for the coaching side of things, I looked at Mark Daigneault early on, and he got in his bag. He had a lineup very early in the game that did not include J-Dub, Shea, or Chet, which to me is crazy in a playoff atmosphere because you're relying on, and I'm going to read you the names that I saw on the court. It was McCain, Dort, Alex Caruso, Jay Will, and AJ Mitchell. That to me was very unorthodox. You know, he got in his bag early with that one. Funny enough, he didn't do that again. So I think the first quarter especially, OKC was really trying to feel out what players were going to work where and how things were going to go. They were going to see who had the hot hand out of those role players. And in all honesty, it didn't backfire. I'm not going to say it worked, right? Because I think they ended up losing those minutes by like 1 or 2 points. So I'm not going to say it backfired, but it was an interesting look early. But I think it goes to show, you know, Mark Daigneault's, you know, his intentions for the series is really just to lean on his role players. And in that sense, it did work because throughout the whole game, the Thunder bench was just way better than the Spurs bench. Stephon Castle this game was super electric. And this was my early notes, is that he was electric. Obviously, by the end of the game, you see the 9 turnovers, and that cannot happen. I thought a lot of the turnovers he had was more so just him pressing, him looking for, you know, a look offensively, a pass that would just lead to something. Other times it was just carelessness. I mean, that's what essentially turnovers are sometimes, is really carelessness. But I mean, once Dylan Harper went down, which he went down in the third quarter, too much fell onto his lap. You're missing a guy in De'Aaron Fox who really slows the game down when you need it to slow down. He's another ball handler, another playmaker, someone who's just changing the pace of the game to benefit the Spurs. And it was all on Castle. And Castle, it's his second year. So this is a lot to put on Castle. I think the Thunder knew that right away. So they were just blitzing him. Castle was hurting them off of the slashing and then attacking to the rim. But yeah, he was very, very erratic. And it's something I noticed right away. Thunder, to me, offensively, what I could tell right away, and this was kind of crazy just to watch live. Because if you haven't seen my video about, you know, the Clash of Titans, doing a film room of the way that these guys play, the Thunder were so adamant on attacking and then kicking out. It was a huge strategy of theirs. Like, let's just attack. Let's just go. Let's just make sure we penetrate and then force their rotations, specifically Wemby. When I mean rotations, I mean specifically Wemby to come up front and we kick it to Wemby's man. I honestly can't count how many times Wemby's assignment defensively, just sit in the corner. Wemby just says, I'm leaving him alone and I'm going to cover the paint area. And what you see Wemby do often, and if you're watching the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's communicating to his defenders, move up, go, go, go. There was one specific time in the third quarter where Dylan Harper did not do so, and Wemby was pissed. So you know he's communicating, move. He's like a director with the music, the people playing instruments, how, you know, he just got everyone going at a certain pace, but he's just really instructing them to go to where he's not so that he can cover the paint. And it was a big strategy for the Spurs to keep it that way, but it was an even bigger strategy for the Thunder to try to punish that. They were like, okay, you want to leave our guys open in the corner? All right, go to the corner. We're going to make that pass. And the Thunder really excelled off of that. Now, to be honest with you, and I'm going to go through my notes a little bit more here, there were times where I felt like it was punishing the Spurs to just really live that way. And I think the Spurs noticed too, because they went into a zone. They're like, wow, this is kind of hurting us just having that corner man there. But they lived with it, and the Thunder could have done more. They could have made more shots. I mean, they were open, like wide open on so many of those looks. They didn't knock them down as nearly as much as they should have. So that's an interesting, you know, aspect of it if you're the Spurs, because you want Wemby down there. But at some point, that's pretty damning, because if one of these games, they're going to come out and just start booming on these threes and just start knocking them down, you can't just have Wemby just sit there. I mean, at some point, I think you're going to have to mix it up. And it's a great job by the Thunder really drawing Wemby out of the paint. It's not that they could, but they punished him for Wemby just really not wanting to get out of there. So we'll see how the Spurs react to that. I know that they have Popovich involved. Great head coach from, back to the 2000s, 2010s. Great head coach. So I'm sure he'll be involved in the film room and talking about ways that they can adjust. Also, their own coaching staff, they've gone this far. Obviously, Popovich can only do so much. So they'll adjust the way they need to, and I think there needs to be an adjustment there. Pulling up more from my notes here, other things I want to talk about. Let's see. Set plays from OKC. Okay, so this is another thing. So what they did in game 1 with Isaiah Hartenstein was just take him out and say, we don't like the way this looks. The reason why is because Wemby, just as I was talking about in that first segment of this video, how he would just leave his assignment. The Thunder could punish that. Not so much with Isaiah Hartenstein out there, because Isaiah Hartenstein could not punish that. He can't shoot. But this game, Mark Daigneault clearly had a conversation with Isaiah Hartenstein and said, you need to be super physical. I don't care if you get fouls. You need to be very physical with Wemby and make him uncomfortable. Get in his grill. Offensively, defensively, make him work for everything. Wemby had to work for the rebounds. Wemby had to work for the scoring. Wemby was getting sealed off defensively. There was so much going on that made the game more physical with Wemby, and Isaiah Hartenstein was at the center of that. A couple set plays where Isaiah Hartenstein would start up high and, let's see, dribble handoffs to SGA, or essentially force Wemby out of the paint because you can't leave SGA open off of a dribble handoff. What I mean by that is, so I'm going to use my hands here. This is Isaiah Hartenstein, and this is Wemby right here. When Isaiah Hartenstein sets the screen on the other guy, Wemby, instead of being way back here, has to be to the side of Isaiah Hartenstein to meet Shea, who's coming off of the handoff. So I thought it was a really great use of Isaiah Hartenstein, to be honest with you, because 12 minutes game 1 off of a guy who is one of your more physical players. I think it was a really good idea for them to make Wemby work for literally just everything. I will say this, though. There were times throughout the game to where the Thunder tried to do too much of those 2v2 matchups or those isolation matchups. I understand going to that dribble handoff, but limiting the offense to just 2 guys, play after play after play, I hated it. Honestly, I think the Thunder are so much better when they're playing team basketball, which they went back to throughout the game. They definitely went back to, let's get everyone involved, let's do these kickouts. But for like a couple minute sequence there, it was Isaiah Hartenstein and Shea only. As good of an idea as it is to have those dribble handoffs for Hartenstein and Shea, I don't think you can make it the entirety of the offense. You can't just solely focus on this and this only. So J-Dub gets hurt, which is a massive loss because you lose a shooter, a slasher, a scorer from the mid-range, a good defender, athleticism. J-Dub being out, it's obviously a big loss. So go into the second half and he's out. Real quick though, Isaiah Hartenstein, the OKC Thunder liked that matchup defensively for him to be on Wemby because they were matching Hartenstein's minutes with Wemby, and they made it a point of emphasis to say, all right, Wemby, you're going to have to work. You might be faster than this guy. You might be just longer than him, but he's going to be very in your face, in which he was. He was grabbing at him a lot. Honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't call some of the fouls where he was just holding Wemby on some of these boards, but they didn't. So I know there's going to be some salty people. And honestly, let me talk about this too now that we're already in this topic. There is way too much selling going on from the OKC side. Guys would just fall, or guys would just like, oh no, look, I got hit. Like, as a neutral fan, because I'm not a fan of either of these teams, I'm a Laker fan. As a neutral, it's just it's unlikable. Honestly, it's very unlikable. And I'm a big fan of Shea in terms of what he does on the court, but the constant falling to me is just kind of ridiculous. And the dirtiness at times, like Isaiah Hartenstein grabbed at Stephon Castle's hair, Lou Dort swiping down, and again the grabbing and pulling of Wemby's arm. And I'm not trying to even hate on the Thunder here because I'm a big fan of the game plan for this game. I'm a big fan of what they did. But just as a neutral fan, like, bro, come on. That is... You make it very easy to not cheer for you. Honestly. So let's just move on from that segment and go on to the next thing here. So second half notes, similar to the first half, but I think the big thing was Wemby turned it on. Started the third quarter. He made a significant effort to really be more involved and to try to take the ball to the, basket a lot more. And his length obviously, pays off. And, funny enough, there was this conversation I had, not really a conversation, but there was this comment on the video where I'm talking, the film room style video of the Thunder and Spurs. Someone said, I don't think Wemby has to hit these shots for them to hit 3-point shots for them to win the series. And I think game 2 is a perfect example of why you do need Wemby to hit these shots, because my God, times where he was open, just didn't knock him down. And they were big time moments. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself because I started at the third quarter here, but he started the third quarter hitting those shots and they were in the game. The moment they're not falling, they got out of the game. Like, they were not at all able to pull ahead. And there was just moments, again, where you look at it and you're like, damn, let me actually find out how many shot attempts he had. It felt like he just missed big moment threes. He was 3 for 7. So is that a good percentage? Absolutely. But I'm pretty sure he missed his last 3 or 4 or went 1 for 4 in his last 4 attempts. So again, I really think whenever he does take those shots, the importance of them going in versus another role player are just more massive, just because he needs to apply that pressure to the Thunder to say, play me up. He had very wide open looks in the second half that just did not fall through. And the Thunder are like, we don't have to play you up if you're just not going to knock him. And we don't have to give you that respect. When he does get that respect, it thins out the Thunder defense. So that's what I think is just really important, is for him to just knock down the open ones. Moving forward with my notes here, let's see. Yeah, Thunder doing a great job of testing Wemby and his range. I thought they were really, really smart about the way that they were attacking the basket. And if Wemby was just there and then they didn't have a lot of space around him, they didn't test it. But if there was even 2 or 3 feet, they would use the mid-range. They would use the floater. Also, if Wemby would commit even more, what would they do? They'd pass it out to the guy who he's leaving alone. And then Wemby would have to depend on his, defensive rotations to get to that guy. So I thought the Thunder did a really good job at just testing Wemby there. Did they challenge him a lot in terms of actually going up on him? I would say no. But they kind of figured out, this is enough space for me to use the mid-range here. Isaiah Hartenstein figured out, this is enough space for me to just float it up here. Again, it's another thing we talked about during that film room video, but it's crucial. You have to be able to figure out what his range is, as crazy as it is, because once you get that down, you can take the shots in case the Spurs rotation is covering up the guy who he's leaving alone, or the guy who he's leaving alone, you'd rather have your mid-range shot than his 3-point shot. So it's good that they figured it out if you're a Thunder fan. Now, if you're a Spurs fan, again, I think you're going to have to see something different, a little bit of mix of something else defensively, because they were just outright picking on, not necessarily picking on him, but picking on the holes he was leaving open, because Wemby is just so dead set on covering the paint area, and the Spurs are going to have to figure something out to help him out, because he's got a big responsibility, man. He's got a huge responsibility. Yeah, Dylan Harper going out was just huge, though, to be honest with you. I know it happened in the third quarter, but from then on, it really felt like the Spurs were climbing their way back up. Shea just did a better job, and the Thunder did a better job offensively. Keldon Johnson, to me, just has to be better, especially when a guy like Dylan goes down. You cannot be shooting as badly as you did. I think he made the last 2 shots he took, but at some point he was 2 for 10. And I'm just looking at it and I'm just like, no, that can't happen. You can't have bone-headed mistakes like letting your guy get the rebound. I think as a unit, though, the Spurs are just going to have to figure out what they're going to be able to do without Harper and or Fox, depending on Fox's status. Other thing is, and this bothered me a bit, to be honest with you. So that over and back call, it led to 2 free throws from the Thunder. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Stephon Castle got called for an over and back. They showed him the replay, and dude, he wasn't even close. There was clearly space between his foot and the white line, and for whatever reason, Tony Brothers called it. I don't want there to be any fan excuses. I want this series to really just be left up to the players, and then when you don't call the fouls against Wemby, when Thunder sell calls, and that's annoying as it is. The calls like the over and back, when it's just totally, it just makes no sense. I don't want there to be anything in terms of excuses. Let these teams who are really great battle it out and let's leave it to them. If we're going to be physical, fine, then be physical. But the selling of the calls and the foul baiting times a million, I just don't want there to be any bad reasons for, fans to be flipping out, which I know is part of the game. Refs are refs, they're human, but stuff like that just can't happen. Any other notes? Let's see. Spurs ended up doubling high on Shea, challenging other players. So by doubling high, it means when Shea crosses the half-court line, they were sending 2. And Shea was having to get it out of his hands, and the Spurs were basically playing 4-on-3 until one of their guys could get back. The whole point of it is to get the ball away from Shea, which I think is a good idea, especially in those moments where possessions are so much more important. But the Thunder just handled it really well. I think their game plan to me this game, Hartenstein be extra physical, Wemby be a little bit too physical at times, but if the refs aren't calling it, power to you. Go at the man who Wemby is leaving alone. Make sure we get those corner threes. They had some really wide open looks, generating some good 3-point shots despite the 3-point percentage not being high. Spurs, to me, number 1 going into game 3. The turnovers are killing you. 9 turnovers from Stephon Castle. You can't do it. You just can't do it. That's not a recipe for winning, because what did we talk about already? You give the Thunder an inch, they're going to take a foot. And they scored off of those turnovers. Like, it was really, really rough to see. Second-year player, time for him to learn. And Wemby, and his group will figure something out in terms of that defensive game plan, because I think the Thunder really used it to their advantage. But we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think of game 2. We're on to game 3 pretty soon. This playoffs is flying by, but I greatly appreciate you guys for watching. For to like, subscribe, because it's a long way to help the channel. This is All We've Been Different. And we out.